The scent of pine and rich soil hangs heavy in the air, a promise whispered on the wind. Beyond the ragged edge of the settled lands, an untamed continent stretches, vast and alluring, to the Pacific. For a burgeoning young nation, this boundless expanse is not just territory, it is a destiny, a shimmering, golden horizon calling with an irresistible siren song. Thousands, then millions, begin to gaze westward, their hearts alight with a powerful, dangerous dream. In the turbulent summer of 1845, a journalist named John O'Sullivan publishes words that ignite a national fire. He writes of our manifest destiny to overspread the continent allotted by Providence for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions. This is no mere land grab, it is framed as a divine mandate, a God-given right for America to expand from sea to shining sea. A powerful, intoxicating idea takes hold, justifying conquest and displacement with sacred purpose. Decades earlier, the seeds of this vision were sown by men like Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. From 1804 to 1806, their core of discovery pushes into the Louisiana Purchase, charting unknown rivers, scaling formidable mountains, and mapping a wilderness beyond imagination. They return with tales of abundant lands, colossal buffalo herds, and a staggering emptiness waiting to be filled. Their journey opens the door, revealing both the grandeur and the terrifying scale of what lies ahead. What drives a family to abandon everything familiar, to gamble their lives against a wilderness? The answer gleams with the promise of virgin soil, endless timber, and the whispered legend of gold. In the crowded cities and worn-out farms of the East, the West becomes a beacon, a chance for a new beginning, economic independence, and a freedom unimaginable. From the impoverished to the ambitious, the call of land, cheap and abundant, is a relentless pull. But the dream is paved with hardship, suffering, and death. The Oregon Trail, a brutal 2,000-mile odyssey, claims thousands of lives to disease, starvation, and unforgiving terrain. A broken wagon wheel, a sudden storm, a raging fever, any can spell doom for a family miles from help. Dust chokes lungs, sun bakes skin, and the relentless trek grinds hope into despair, testing the very limits of human endurance. This vast land, however, is not empty. For millennia, it has been home to diverse, sovereign nations, the Lakota, the Cheyenne, the Cherokee, the countless others. As the tide of settlers pushes ever westward, these worlds collide, often peacefully at first, through trade and wary observation. But with each new mile claimed, with each new fort erected, the fragile peace phrase, and a devastating conflict, simmering beneath the surface, draws closer. By 1845, the fervent belief in manifest destiny finds its most ardent champion in the White House, President James K. Polk. A formidable expansionist, Polk eyes not just the Oregon Territory, but the vast lands held by Mexico, California, New Mexico, Arizona. He declares, unequivocally, that American expansion is inevitable, a policy to be pursued with unwavering resolve. The stage is now set for an aggressive, calculated gamble for dominion. Polk's ambitions quickly lead to a brutal clash. In 1846, after a border dispute escalates, the United States declares war on Mexico. American forces, under generals like Zachary Taylor and Winfield Scott, invade deep into Mexican territory, fighting desperate battles from Palo Alto to Monterrey. The war is swift, bloody, and decisive, a raw demonstration of American military power and its unwavering desire for continental supremacy. By 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo carves out an immense new empire, adding California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and parts of New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming to the United States. America now stretches from sea to shining sea. But this triumph of expansion carries a devastating consequence, for the question of whether slavery will be allowed in these new territories ignites a fiery debate. The very act of fulfilling manifest destiny unknowingly rips the young nation apart, setting it on an inexorable course toward its darkest hour. The ink on the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo barely dries when a new kind of fever grips the nation. America now stretches, almost impossibly vast, from Atlantic to Pacific, a land of immense promise and terrifying uncertainty. But with every new acre, with every mile westward, the fundamental question echoes louder, deeper: will this grand new empire be free or slave? Two visions of America clash irreconcilably on the stolen soil. Then, a whisper becomes a roar. In January 1848, at Sutter's Mill in California, carpenter James Marshall spots a glint in the American River, gold. The discovery ignites a stampede unlike any before, as hundreds of thousands abandon homes and farms, pouring into California's rugged landscape, desperate for fortune. This sudden, chaotic influx creates an urgent, undeniable demand for law and order, for statehood. California, bursting at the seams, applies for admission as a free state, instantly reigniting the burning debate over slavery's expansion. In the halls of Congress, the giants of a generation, Henry Clay, Daniel Webster, John C. Calhoun, wrestle with the nation's destiny. For months, they broker and bargain, forging the Compromise of 1850, a last-ditch effort to pull the Union back from the precipice. It's a fragile peace, bought at an unbearable cost. Integral to that fragile truce is the Fugitive Slave Act, a chilling decree compelling citizens across the nation to aid in the capture of runaway slaves. Suddenly, even in free states, the long arm of slavery reaches out, snatching individuals like Anthony Burns from Boston streets in 1854, dragging them back into bondage. This act enrages the North, transforms indifferent observers into abolitionists, and plants a deep, festering wound in the heart of the Union. Just 4 years later, a new political titan, Illinois Senator Stephen Douglas, champions an audacious idea: popular sovereignty. In 1854, his Kansas-Nebraska Act proposes that settlers in these new territories decide for themselves whether to allow slavery. This stroke of legislative genius or madness shatters the bedrock of the Missouri Compromise, which had for decades prohibited slavery north of the 36°30' parallel. The future of the West, once settled, now hangs entirely in the balance. The consequences are immediate and brutal. Pro-slavery and abolitionist settlers flood into Kansas, each side determined to sway the vote, quickly turning the frontier into a bloody battleground. From 1854 to 1859, the territory earns its grim moniker, Bleeding Kansas. Armed militias clash, towns are sacked, and men like radical abolitionist John Brown commit unspeakable acts, staining the prairie soil with the blood of their convictions. As the nation fractures, the Supreme Court steps in, hoping to settle the matter once and for all. In 1857, Chief Justice Roger B. Taney delivers the Dred Scott v. Sanford decision, declaring that black individuals, free or enslaved, are not citizens and have no standing to sue. Worse, the court rules that Congress cannot prohibit slavery in the territories, effectively opening the entire West to bondage. The highest court in the land has just nullified any hope for a peaceful resolution. The verdict, a devastating blow to abolitionists, only fuels the fire of radicalism. In October 1859, the fiercely dedicated John Brown, now a grizzled veteran of Bleeding Kansas, leads a desperate raid on the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, hoping to spark a slave uprising. His audacious plan fails, but his capture, trial, and subsequent execution electrify the nation. For some, he is a madman; for others, a martyr whose sacrifice heralds a holy war. The chasm is now unbridgeable. As 1860 dawns, a deeply fractured nation prepares for a presidential election that will determine its very existence. The Democratic Party splinters into northern and southern factions, while the Republican candidate, Abraham Lincoln, stands on an anti-slavery platform. When Lincoln wins without a single Southern electoral vote, the South sees not a leader, but a death knell. States begin to secede, one by one, tearing the fabric of the Union and plunging the continent into its darkest hour. The Democratic Party splinters into northern and southern factions, unable to reconcile. Abraham Lincoln, a towering figure from Illinois, rises through the Republican ranks, promising to prevent slavery's expansion. His victory in November 1860 ignites a powder keg. South Carolina, defiant, votes to secede, shattering the Union. One by one, states of the Deep South follow, their flags lowered, their allegiances shifted. By February 1861, 7 states declared themselves the Confederate States of America, forging a new nation on the principle of states' rights and the perpetuation of slavery. The stage is set for an inevitable clash. In April, cannons opened fire on Fort Sumter. The Civil War erupts, not just on eastern battlefields, but across the vast new territories of the West. Kansas, already soaked in blood, becomes a brutal battleground. Missouri sees bitter partisan fighting, with bushwhackers and jayhawkers clashing in savage raids, turning neighbor against neighbor. The promise of expansion now fuels the nation's agonizing self-destruction. As the nation tears itself apart, Native American tribes find themselves caught in the crossfire, their lands once again coveted, their treaties ignored. Some, like the Cherokee and Choctaw, align with the Confederacy, seeking to protect their sovereignty against the encroaching Union. Others fight for the Union, hoping for a future of peace, yet all face a devastating reckoning. 4 years later, the Union triumphs, but the cost is staggering, over 620,000 lives extinguished. Yet, the drive west persists, now fueled by a warforged resolve and the ambition of a reunited nation. In 1869, at Promontory Summit, Utah, the Golden Spike is driven, completing the Transcontinental Railroad. Iron ribbons now bind the continent, accelerating the final conquest. The railroad carves a path through ancestral lands, bringing an unstoppable wave of settlers, buffalo hunters, and soldiers. The Sioux, Cheyenne, and Apache resist with ferocity, fighting for their very existence. Legendary figures like Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse emerge, embodying a desperate defiance against overwhelming odds. The wars for the West intensify. The Ghost Dance, a spiritual movement promising renewal and the return of lost ways, sweeps through the plains, sparking fear among white settlers. In December 1890, near Wounded Knee Creek, South Dakota, the 7th Cavalry attempts to disarm a band of Lakota. A single shot rings out, turning into a horrific massacre. Over 300 Lakota men, women, and children perish. The relentless expansion leaves an indelible mark on the land itself. Vast buffalo herds, once numbering in the tens of millions, are decimated to near extinction, their bones littering the plains. Ancient forests fall to the axe and plow. The continent's immense natural resources, timber, minerals, fertile soil, are extracted with a speed and scale previously unimaginable, altering the landscape forever. By the dawn of the 20th century, the frontier is declared closed. America stretches from sea to shining sea, a formidable global power. But this triumph is deeply intertwined with profound tragedy. The manifest destiny that propelled a nation westward was built on broken promises, immense suffering, and an enduring scar on the American soul. It is a legacy that still reverberates.